And I didn't even know about the show. It wasn't even about that. It was, hey, Phillip, we got this restaurant. It's been open for about 6 or 7 months. I think that they were really intrigued by, I'm not really a timid person, as you can see on the show, but not timid just with regards to people. I kind of really gravitate towards a challenge.
Everyone's different. And for me, I was like, he's coming in too hot. Like, this is going to like be a disaster with the staff. Did you feel like you had to come in that hot because of where the restaurant was at that time? Or was that just, or is that just you? Because again, we don't know you.
Yes, to be quite frank, it's just me. It wasn't premeditated by any means, and it wasn't sought out. All the things that I addressed, to be honest with you, were things that they brought to my attention to actually seek out. With regards to Chandrika's approach to guests, that was something that was brought to my attention. I didn't just go around, with ammunition trying to get at people. These were things that they brought to my attention. Now, the minute you bring something to my attention, if I'm fixing it, this is my conversation with Don Juan. I'm going to do it how I do it. And if you want somebody else to do it a different way, you have to hire somebody else to do it a different way, because this is me.
It's not necessarily in a bad way. It's just when you have big personalities, it's hard to get that person to reel back personality.
For sure.
Brian's
very charismatic. He honestly is. The only opportunity that Brian had was, it's like you gotta know, you gotta stay in your lane in some moments. Like if someone's asking you to do something, it's great to make a joke, but like if I'm like, hey Brian, let's sweep this up, let's like you can't come back with what, your hands don't work, your feet don't move. I'm not an employee, and I need to put a lot of emphasis on that. So I can sit down and have a conversation with Kandi and Todd about, whatever they want me to approach it, and it's a dialogue though. I'm not a person where, there were certain moments where I'm sitting down with Don Juan and he wants to act like I'm being called to the principal's office. You got the wrong guy.
How challenging was that, losing, again, both parents, and then going into a new situation with higher circumstances because there's cameras everywhere? Like, was that a lot? Was it added weight going into the situation? Like, how did that play into everything for you?
I wouldn't say it was added weight. I think, there's two different ways, or several different ways people deal with their struggles. Brian and I's situations and what we felt were similar, but what we resorted to kind of push through it was different. I just immersed myself in work. This new opportunity just kind of kept my mind busy, right? So the only time I really thought long and hard about it, or when I was down, was kind of when I went home. And I didn't really want to go home. I didn't honestly distance myself from everyone who even really knew my mother like that, because I just felt like they knew what I was dealing with. And so I had to acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge them feeling bad for me, and I had to talk about it or whatever. So when I was at work, no one really knew who I was. This is Phillip Frempong from Kandi and the Gang. You are now tuned into Suave Sessions.
One is, again, it's great to meet you. A lot of us basically all of us are introduced to you from the show, from Kandi and the Gang. But we don't really know you. And I think that's a big part of a lot of, the social media gives, I guess you can call them. So who is Phillip? Like, where'd you grow up? Like, what was life like for you? I mean, like childhood, teenage years, what was that like?
A long time ago. I'm from Atlanta originally.
Okay.
Actually, like North Atlanta, so I went to Dunwoody High School. I've been in restaurants since the age of 19. Actually worked for the same restaurant group from the age of 19 up until 35. It's how I paid for my degree. I didn't go to school for culinary or anything associated to hospitality. I actually have a Bachelor's of Science in biology. So Restaurants is just something that became a part of who I am because I was, immersed in it for so many years. It's how I paid for my education, and I just really grew to like it.
So you want to be, I'm taking it, you want to do something with biology, which is why you got a degree in biology, because most people don't go that far into science if they don't like it.
My dad was really, really heavy on education. He actually had his PhD. So a large part of it was just for me to kind of fulfill, in a sense, what I felt like was proper. It was also interesting. A lot of people go to school for business or something of that sort, which is something that everybody goes, to school for. But I think if you can kind of major in something that actually piques your interest, then you're more likely to just stay intact with it, instead of just feeling like you just got a degree. So majority of it was interesting, and then a large part of it was really challenging.
Got you. So when you went into restaurants, was it, you said you were 19, were you just going in as just like server? Like how did that happen? What made you go to a restaurant?
Money. I wanted to be able to, provide for myself. Serving was always something that I actually wondered why people did, to be quite frank. I remember when me and my mother used to go out to eat, I was like, why do people want to do this? But the money was really good. And I think I lucked up and became a part of a company that was really at the top of the line when it came to hospitality. It's not fine dining or anything, but just had a high level of like sophistication, and it's really what, in a sense, kind of groomed me, in addition to education and things that you learn, in your household, where a lot of places where you spend a lot of your time is work. So, to be at a really impressionable age at 19, to be a part of this restaurant group, which was, very sophisticated, et cetera, it just helped me. I think it tapped into maybe a large part of who I was that I hadn't even discovered yet.
Who is that?
I like a lot of just organization. I like type A personalities. I like people that are just, just very in tune with advancement, et cetera. I just like that kind of structure. Some people like a more laid back environment. I don't flourish in laid back environments. So again, that's something that I became aware of as I was working for them, because there are too many people that kind of started with me or worked in the same environment with me and didn't go as long as I did. A lot of people went longer. A lot of people had been there for 25 plus years, but it was really based upon whether it kind of was in line with your personality and in line with the environment that you kind of gravitate towards, or if it wasn't. If you didn't really like a specific way to do something and a lot of structure and that, then it wasn't going to work for you. But for me, it did.
So was that a part of your upbringing? Was like structure really heavy in the house?
I wouldn't say it was really heavy in my household. My dad, yes. My dad is Ghanaian. So he was very big on education. He was very big on just aesthetics, as far as you being, sitting up properly, speaking properly, how you greet people. He was really big on those things. Not to say that my mother wasn't, but I think you always have that one parent that just wants you to live, And really,
that's typically mom.
Maybe that's why me and my mom had such a special bond, was because she just wanted me to be who I was.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So when you have this career in hospitality, is 14 years at that point. When you have that, and then you're approached by Kandi, and you realize that this is going to be a television show as well, was there hesitation knowing that you're now about to put your life in the public eye?
Yes and no. The way that I met Kandi was a little, there's a little bit of a skip step there. Kandi met me towards the tail end of my tenure with that restaurant group. So at that time, I was going to just honestly branch off and create my own restaurant consulting firm. Just do independent contracting rather. And more of it was quality of life. I had already dedicated my life to this company for so long. Restaurants are so time consuming. I just wanted to kind of be able to breathe. I wanted to work out, do my consulting on the side, travel. And at that time, I had just lost both of my parents. So she kind of on this cusp of navigating away from something that I had been a part of for so long. But initially, it was actually not for the show. I just came on as an independent contractor to consult for them for Blaze. And I didn't even know about the show. It wasn't even about that. It was, hey, Phillip, we got this restaurant. It's been open for about 6 or 7 months. I think that they were really intrigued by, I'm not really a timid person, as you can see on the show, but not timid just with regards to my people. I kind of really gravitate towards a challenge. So when you go into a space, i.e. Blaze, and they have no systems in order, they barely had a really solid management team. For me, a lot of people would be kind of scared by it or feel like, oh, what do I do? I looked at it as, oh, this is going to be awesome. I get to really kind of exercise all the things I had learned for all these years and apply it to showing them how good I am. So it wasn't even about the show at all. And then after I did Blaze for that amount of months, the show came up. And yes, I said no.
Absolutely not. Like it's okay, because I worked in hotel management for years while kind of starting this magazine, and like being in that industry, when I started watching the show, it was like episode 1. I was like, okay, this is about to be interesting, because I've been to Old Lady Gang a few times, and I was like, okay, I want to see like the behind the scenes stuff. And then you came on, and I was like, oh shit, this is about to go bad fast. And I was like on one side, I'm cringing, but on the other side, I see like what needs to be fixed. But it's like knowing, I guess, the managerial style, everyone's different. And for me, I was like, he's coming in too hot. Like, this is going to like be a disaster with the staff. Did you feel like you had to come in that hot because of where the restaurant was at that time, or is that just you? Because again, we don't know you.
Yeah, to be quite frank, it's just me. It wasn't premeditated by any means, and it wasn't sought out. I think the biggest thing in my tenure with that prior restaurant group is that I worked for them for that many years, but I worked at like 7 different stores. So I lived in Miami, Dallas, LA, New York. They consistently transfer you, so you're always immersed in like a different environment. I think that's the other thing that didn't really present a lot of hesitation for me, is because I was used to kind of being thrown into an environment where I didn't know everything, I didn't know everyone, and I was expected to perform. So I think a lot of times when I came in hot, that was my level of frustration. I mean, when you go into an environment, it's almost like, you've heard Todd say, he can't even go into these restaurants because he's nitpicking every single thing. When some of the things structurally that you're trying to put together are not working, that's one thing. But when you see that people are just tearing down your business, that's a whole nother, thing. And this company, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's night and day from where I came from. It's night and day from structure, from a very refined, and again, this is not fine dining. It's just like, hey, we set an expectation. You meet the expectation. If you don't, then you're out. So my cutthroatness is just how I was used to. I'm surprised I made it as long as I did with the restaurant. You got a guest complaint, It honestly was true. You guest complaint, you don't show up, you don't perform. There is no conversation. Here we have a lot of conversations.
I cringe at that as well. But it's like, for me, I couldn't imagine my hotel owner being beside me while I'm trying to fix problems. Because again, that's their baby. Like their restaurants that's another child basically.
Right.
But when you're telling someone your child is bad, like that's never an easy conversation. And when someone's coming from the outside saying this is what you need to do to discipline your child, like no one takes that well. So is that hard dealing with the fact that your owners of the restaurant are there while you're trying to fix the problems that are blatant in your face?
I wouldn't say it's hard. I mean, to be honest with you, Todd and I are usually on the same page. And even if we're not, I don't need people to agree with what my approach is. All the things that I addressed, to be honest with you, were things that they brought to my attention to actually seek out. With regards to Chandrika's approach to guests, that was something that was brought to my attention. I didn't just go around, with ammunition trying to get at people. These were things that they brought to my attention. Now, the minute you bring something to my attention, if I'm fixing it, this is my conversation with Don Juan. I'm going to do it how I do it. And if you want somebody else to do it a different way, you have to hire somebody else to do it a different way, because this is me. And this is my approach, which I know is effective, but I didn't come into this environment to be trained on how you do things. In fact, you hired me to give you advice and to guide you in the best way possible. And I even went further than I probably should. Most consultants, to be honest with you, you've had a regional before. When has your regional ever reprimanded the person who just started? They tell them what they have to say, you know?
Like this is what y'all need to go do, so.
Right, my level of involvement was just bigger than really what it needed to be. And the only reason that it kind of, I guess, stretched that far is because that's just what I'm used to. I worked myself up from the bottom. I served, I bartended, I got my degree, went through their management and training program, which is close to a 20-week course. You know, I made my moves, I worked myself up. I was a junior manager, senior assistant, general manager, culinary manager. I've done everything. So for me, it's not foreign to get in there and sweep trash and get on a broiler. When we didn't have a broiler here, I get behind the line and I'm cooking steaks, but I'm also the person that's placing orders, controlling the, profit and loss reports. So my role, to be honest with you, is 10 times larger than, what is kind of seen, but it's very impactful.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's when you know the full functionality of what a restaurant needs to do and you know all the aspects of it, you know how to fix those different things. Yeah. So we know reality television. Like it's going to give you the drama of it. And you have no idea what the conversations were beforehand. You have no idea what the interactions were. It's just, okay, drop right here. So when we drop right here, it was always, here comes Phillip, here comes the problem. Like, and when you're watching it back, are you like, that's not how that went? Like, that's not what that conversation was.
I'll be honest. TV, this is the biggest thing that TV's done for me. I'm used to kind of having a moment and then I move on, right? It's like whatever I remember. When it's on television, you actually see what in fact happened. So no one's putting words in my mouth. No one's making me act a certain way. It's literally that's just how I'm responding, So in a lot of ways, yes, to the point, it was very eye-opening for me to kind of see myself, to have to relive that moment, but actually see it from, a camera perspective. But it was a really real moment, I think that there were some things with, you always want your approach to be as impactful as it can be. And sometimes, maybe whatever you're really trying to drive home as far as the point gets lost if you get a little too upset, or if you, kind of are very emotionally driven in whatever your response is. So in some of those moments, especially with cameras around, it caught me off guard where I don't even like a lot of attention. So like to have cameras there, spotlighting what's going on, and it be a real interaction, it kind of just magnified everything times 10. I was like, this is a lot.
Yeah. So when you're watching back, I know most of us, when we see ourselves doing something, we critique ourselves. Are you now a lot more conscious of delivery? Are you changing anything in how you do things based off of like what you're seeing now? Are you still like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best way, but I still got to do what I got to do?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't feel like I'm changing. I think that there's a strong sense of awareness, right? And so I think if you see something, no different from you seeing something that you like and embodying that, or like, kind of replicating that same kind of behavior. If there's things and you just naturally adjust in that manner. If it's something that you don't like, then you kind of move in a different direction. With this, I kind of felt like when I was caught off guard by some of the moments, it really caught me off guard. But I'm also not a person, look, I'm not an employee, and I need to put a lot of emphasis on that. So I can sit down and have a conversation with Kandi and Todd about, whatever they want me to approach it. And it's a dialogue though. I'm not a person where, there were certain moments where I'm sitting down with Don Juan and he wants to act like I'm being called to the principal's office. You got the wrong guy. That's not, that's not me.
It shows that. Like the interaction shows that you're not.
But it's not an ego thing. It's just I'm beyond that. You know what I mean? I work for myself. That's not what this is about. And I invest too much into this restaurant group. I operate their restaurants like I'm the one that's impacted by what the profit is. You know what I mean? Like I walk into these restaurants, and when things are not right, Honestly, it probably hits home for me just as equal as it would if Kandi or Todd, walked in and saw something that wasn't right. When I see reviews that are crazy, I mean, sometimes I had to stay off of it because you got to think I'm doing this for 3 locations. This isn't just one. This is all 3 restaurants, all 3 orders, all 3 staff. Like, look, it's a lot.
It's a lot. No, because even when I talked to Kandi, she was saying like when she gets the Yelp reviews and they're just like coming to her phone like all day. She's like, it's frustrating in most situations because you're trying to figure out like, why is someone doing this? Like, why are you talking to a guest like this? And everything falls back on her name. Yeah. So it's like, I get it. Like you try to fix it, but it's a lot to fix. And then you start dealing with the staff interactions. For a viewer, because I'm very glad I'm not in your position. For a viewer, like Brian came in, I was like, oh, this is like, he's about to be the life of the restaurant. And then as much as I love him as a former hotel manager, I'm like, he would have been too much for me to have work under me because it's a lot. And it's not necessarily in a bad way. It's just when you have big personalities, it's hard to get that person to reel back personality.
For sure.
So when
Brian's very charismatic, he honestly is. The only opportunity that Brian had was it's like you gotta know, you gotta stay in your lane in some moments. Like if someone's asking you to do something, it's great to make a joke, but like if I'm like, hey Brian, let's sweep this up, let's like you can't come back with what your hands don't work, your feet don't move. Like those jokes only go for so long. When you keep making them, and I keep having to sweep, and I keep having to do these things, because I also lead by example. I'm not a person that stands back, and all of them will tell you that. I don't just sit up here and point the finger. If I'm in that restaurant, I'm busting tables, I'm sweeping, I'm doing, that's what it takes to kind of get these jobs done. You can't just stand back as a better than type thing. And hopefully that builds a staff to kind of respect you more. But with Brian, look, Brian, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him now. I think that the small things that we needed to fix as far as, his rebuttal every time someone asked him to do the smallest thing, he's definitely, I think that was Brian's way of kind of saying, no, I don't want to do it. And who are you, in a sense, but he gives managers that have been managing him for a long time, i.e. Brandon, he gives them that same kind of flack. But I think as we've grown to understand each other more, now anything I ask Brian to do, sometimes I don't even have to ask him. He's just down for it, and there's more of that camaraderie, in a sense of it just being someone's trying to tell me what to do. But yeah, I think it's all of them. Chandrika was the exact same way. We bump heads in the beginning, and sometimes the relationships that they call me now. Look, if I'm not at Old Lady Gang and something's going wrong or they don't see me for 3 days, Chandrika's like, Phillip, where you at? What's going on? You're not coming up here, you're gonna be up here next. I'm like, Chandrika, I'm at 2 other locations. But that makes me feel like we both can appreciate each other. Even when Chandrika's gone on a weekend, I'm like, Chandrika, what are you doing? You can't take off on a Saturday. Like, you hold this place down, you keep it together. So some of the relationships, again, I think that's anything in life, especially when it comes to work, they may not always start off the best, but a lot of times they end up being great.
Yeah, and that's when I saw the team building episode, and you see like everyone was like, okay, Phillip loosened up a little bit. Yeah. But again, it's like I get it. Like you have to draw a line and say, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to help run a business. So we can be cool, and I can be cordial with you, but I can't just be your friend to where you feel like we're on the same level. Right. And you can just do what you want to do, and I'm going to be okay with it. Right. And that's kind of what we see on Brian's character. And it's like, you can see everywhere where it goes wrong. And you start to see like, okay, they're cool with you, but the respect level is lower. Yeah. Is that something that, like, again, addressing Brian and saying you have to step up and use your voice more, is that something that you saw coming in, or was that something that was also brought to your attention before you got there?
No, it was brought to my attention before I got there. In the small interactions that we had, I was able to see that, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge because it's the class clown. He may know that what you're telling him is right, but he's about to make a big mockery of it or make a scene out of it, or, whatever the case is, you know. So it took a moment for me to start to see his personality as being more charisma versus it being, you know, just kind of insubordinate. And again, it's a part of how it grew into being. I didn't really have a lot of time to get to know these people either before we started filming. I think I was in the environment maybe 2 days before Brian actually started back. So there wasn't like, you know, it was like, hey, Phillip, here it is. This is the restaurant and it's busy. So can you fix orders? Can you fix staff? Can you fix this, that, and the other? Can you respond to this review? You know, they were on a pen and paper. They had a line down the block, but they're using a pen and paper. So you got to incorporate technology. You got to teach them on the technology. Kind of like, it was like, what world are we living in? Like no one, they had one QR code. This was the craziest thing to me. You know, everyone went, you know, QR code, paperless or whatever, you know, pandemic. And so you got a line down the block. We got one QR code for the entire restaurant, which was actually pasted on top of the greet stand when you walked in. So every single person that crossed the threshold of that door had to stop and scan the QR code. Do you know how long that took?
Yeah, that's a process.
I was like, nobody in here said, let's print another QR code. It's like from small things like that to large things like theft. No one could even see all the theft that was going on. I mean, they were voiding and comping, and I'm using restaurant terminology, but to the point of it, there were just so many things that were going on that were even countering what a guest, you know, or a guest felt bad or, you know, didn't have a great experience, but there were other things that were just tearing the business down. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's insane, you know?
Yeah. And you share something, like after Brian's episode when you had to sit down with him and you were like, you know, we're gonna put you on leave. When you watched after the episode, you, Kandi, and Brian got on Instagram Live, and you said that you understood Brian's stance at that point a little bit more because you had recently lost your mom during COVID as well.
Correct.
And sorry to hear that. How challenging was that, losing again both parents and then going into a new situation with higher circumstances because there's cameras everywhere? Like, was that a lot? Was it added weight going into the situation? Like, how did that play into everything for you?
I wouldn't say it was added weight. I think, you know, there's two different ways or several different ways people deal with their struggles. You know, Brian and I's situations and what we felt were similar, but what we resorted to kind of push through it was different. I just immersed myself in work. This new opportunity just kind of kept my mind busy, right? So the only time I really thought long and hard about it, or when I was down, was kind of when I went home, and I didn't really want to go home. You know, I didn't honestly distance myself from everyone who even really knew my mother like that, because I just felt like they knew what I was dealing with, and so I had to acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge them feeling bad for me, and I had to talk about it or whatever. So when I was at work, no one really knew who I was. No one knew what I had just gone through. So it was a great way for me to kind of, you know, time heals for sure. So at that moment, it was great for me to kind of just be in this environment and not have to deal with the things inside that were really pulling my days down. So I could definitely understand, you know, those moments. My mother, you know, people, especially at that time, were making, you know, a lot of assumptions about how they viewed COVID. Some people thought it was a fake thing. Some people thought it was this, that, and the other. You know, I literally stood over my mother as COVID took her breath away, where she was panting to breathe. And I'm the one that called the ambulance to kind of get her there, you know. And even during that time, you couldn't find a thermometer in the store. You know, I took my mom to the hospital 5 times before she actually had to be admitted into the hospital and being put on a ventilator. No one knew anything. I mean, you would call CDC. I was literally that guy that was just frantic, trying to find a way. And I was the person who always found a way for my mom, or always found a way just in general. I've always been in some sort of position that kind of you find a solution to it, or you make it better. So when I lost her, it just felt like I had lost, of all things to lose, why this? You know, I felt like I hadn't done my part. There was just so much guilt that was even associated to it. And then it takes some time to kind of really see it from a different perspective, and stop guilting yourself for some things. And honestly, even guilting other people. I think I was mad. I was mad at a higher power. I was mad at doctors. I was mad at I was like, you didn't, you know, how many times did I take her to the doctor? I remember even just calling back to ICU and kind of talking to the doctor and being like, how could you do this? How do you do this to somebody? Because I was so angry, in those moments, and frustrated that you just wanted to change the outcome. And to be honest with you, for a solid 2 months, I talked about my mother as if she was still alive, because I did not want to accept the fact that was real. It was very tough. So when Brian said he was in those dark spaces and he, woke up and was kind of like, why did I even have to wake up? I mean, I know those feelings. I know those feelings all too well. And I said, I've never wanted to take my life before, but when you don't have anything, when you feel like you don't have anything to live for, it's a very dangerous headspace to be in, because you are just negligent with everything. You're negligent with people, you're negligent with your life, you don't take care of yourself. And that was the other hard thing, honestly, about watching myself on television is I wasn't doing anything. I would barely wash my face. Like, you know what I mean? I've always been physically fit. So people look at you and they think, oh, you're attractive, you're this, that, and the other. But I see my struggle in watching myself on film, because I just wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't eating healthy. It was just a lot of things that just I had lost like 15, 20 pounds. It was crazy. And it just wasn't a good feeling. And so to be in the middle of filming and not be able to take a pause, that was hard for me sometimes,
Yeah. So now with everything, I guess, balancing back out, everything getting back to, I don't want to say normal for you, because I don't know if it's normal for you yet.
It's a new normal.
A new normal. Okay.
Yeah.
So with all that in sight now, what do you want for the future? Like, how has television increased the demand for a Phillip in their restaurants? Like, has business increased for you? Like, do you have other things you want to do now because of the show?
Yeah, so I initially was going to go into real estate, and I still do real estate, but I don't learn it. It's more of the investment into it. So I have a business partner. We actually, they've been doing it for about 10 to 15 years, so they're very well versed in it. So I came on board with them to kind of just help with capital and, but I wanted to learn the process, so that could be something that I do more full on. But COVID kind of put a little bit of a halt on that too. Permits were taking forever to kind of come about. So, the real estate aspect of things, just with regards to flipping homes, is definitely something that I'm still immersed in. I'm just not doing it full on because I am so involved in these restaurants right now. And I'm really committed when I get committed to something, it's very hard for me to disconnect. So, what was supposed to only be a few months now has become like, I don't even know when this is going to end. Not saying I'm looking for it, but I would want to replace myself before, I just up and leave Todd and Kandi, and then they're, at a loss, because you've spent all this time and everything. And these restaurants, I don't want to take credit for everything, but a lot of the systems that are in place, management structures, everything from like the core of how the company is beginning to operate now is all built upon my ideas. And so when you build that type of camaraderie with the people that work for them, you're not even just there for the guest experience. Now you feel dedicated to follow through on your promise to all the managers and all the people that now like stay with the organization because you're a part of it. So, right. Me and my boyfriend Felipe, we invest in hair. Felipe's a hairdresser, so we travel, and we actually. So I dabbled in a few different things that still keep me, I guess, revived. So that restaurants don't just run me down. And ultimately, instead of consulting for other restaurants, I think that I would love to open my own restaurant. And I've had the opportunity to kind of do it jointly in the past 6 months or so. I just haven't found the right fit for me on what I want to do. But I think that I would love to be able to invest all this time and energy into something that is my own, or actually even shared with somebody else, because at that rate, the world gets to see how you truly want them to kind of come into a space and feel great about it, instead of having to kind of redefine someone else's vision and their dream. I want to just bring mine to fruition and allow the world to experience that.
That's dope. Thank you for listening to another episode of Suave Sessions. If you would like to see more of Suave Magazine, please visit www.suave.com. Follow us on all social media outlets under Suave Magazine. As always, spread some love, be blessed, and stay suave.
Peace.